Progressive Voices' John Sinton has written a continuing series called A Turning Point that touches on politics, culture, and media. You can hear the short essays in the on-demand section of progressivevoices.com and on the PV app.
For Progressive Voices, I'm John Sinton, and this is A Turning Point. Today, why, oh, why? A selfish, self-centered interloper has cast so much doubt on our elections and judicial institutions as to have single-handedly undermined our democracy in ways previously unthinkable, even though we were warned at the beginning of the American experiment that the system was fragile and susceptible to abuse by anyone with the desire and enough power. Now he and his minions are on the record hedging. They say they won't honor the results of the November election, quote, if there's fraud again, unquote. This despite 60-plus failures in courts across the land to declare fraud in the 2020 election. Beat it, truth. There's no place for you here. Following the now usual course, our presidential election will be decided by about 300,000 of the more than 168 million registered voters. An argument for winner-take-all can be made here, but this commentary is not about the anachronistic Electoral College. A significant minority of the American people now believe that elections are rigged, law enforcement is dishonest, and the judiciary can't be trusted. It's the polar opposite of everything the American right believed right up until the beginning of the age of Trump. Turning themselves inside out, they now think everything in our political life is corrupt, and only one man, the grifting, lying, self-centered, adulterous, convicted sex offender Donald Trump, can be trusted. Talk about bizarro world. It's the Superman comics as Nostradamus or maybe Cassandra. All of the evidence shows that Donald Trump cares not a whit for the United States, or really anything except himself. He's been willing to say and do anything to, one, keep himself in the news because ratings are everything, and two, to defy all norms of decency by demonizing the press, ridiculing American war heroes, the disabled, and using the most divisive rhetoric he can muster. Yet, he leads in certain polls. Why, oh why, are tens of millions of Americans willing to turn a blind eye to his behavior? There seem to be no easy answers. Here's conservative commentator Bret Stephens, who said any good analysis of the Trump phenomenon has to begin with an analysis of the us phenomenon, if you will. Where did those of us who were supposed to represent the sensible center of the country go so wrong that people were willing to turn to a charlatan like Trump in the first place? I have endless theories, he goes on, but here's another one. We tried to change the way people are instead of meeting them where they are. Neocons, like me, he says, tried to bend distant cultures in places like Afghanistan to accept certain Western values. It didn't work. Progressives tried to push Americans to accept new values on issues like identity, equity, and pronouns, and that isn't working either. The scariest part of the plan that Trump has for a second term is to weaponize the executive branch to reflect the goals as established in the right-wing think tank Heritage Foundation's Mandate for Leadership, part of their larger Project 2025, wherein they call for an end to the historical independence of the Justice Department. Their occluded vision calls for an alignment between justice, the FBI, and the Attorney General. The document calls itself a blueprint for the next conservative president, but to me it reads like Mussolini's porn stash. The Department of Health and Human Services would become the Department of Life and, quote, maintain a biblically based, social science reinforced definition of marriage and family, unquote, and goodbye gay marriage. It reminds me of the deceitful awakened church, which cloaks its militancy in terms that belie the violence-provoking ideas and videos on its affiliated remnant website. We're considering adding an overstuffed chair to our bedroom so that our new overlords will be more comfortable. To disrupt the constitutional checks and balances, they want the executive to override laws, saying, quote, the legal function cannot be allowed to thwart the administration's agenda, unquote. Let that sink in. Beyond the eyebrow-raising idea that the Justice Department should not be independent, the document is filled with the anti-democratic agitprop that is now standard hard-right fare, like tax cuts for the very wealthy, neutering the EBA and the rest of the alphabet soup regulatory agencies, and its companion, the deregulation of industry. after he told his lackeys in Congress to scrap a bipartisan border bill. And Applebaum went on Washington Week in Review to say that he's also decided he doesn't want money to go to Ukraine. It's really an extraordinary moment, she said. We have an out-of-power ex-president who is in effect dictating American foreign policy on behalf of a foreign dictator or with the interests of a foreign dictator in mind, unquote. Well, the latest is the leaked tape from a meeting at Mar-a-Lago where the once and perhaps future king, who is always about the transaction, tells oil executives that for a campaign contribution of a cool $1 billion, he'll repeal every Biden executive order aimed at reducing pollution and reliance on fossil fuels. And that is the leading Republican presidential candidate. For Progressive Voices, I'm John Sinton.
PV brings you the best progressive audio and video in one free stream. Stephanie Miller, Tom Hartman, Randy Rhodes, David Packman, Brad Friedman, and more. Search Progressive Voices on the TuneIn app. Download the free Progressive Voices app or go to progressivevoices.com.